Every UFC fighter has a specific style they like to use in their fights. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you guys who I think is the best fighter of each style. The styles I'm going to be talking about is boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, Taekwondo, wrestling, Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Sambo, and in general MMA. Let's get to it. We're starting it off with boxing. And for boxing, I chose Petr Yan. And for the runner-up, I went with Ilia Topuria. Petr Yan's first sport was boxing. Yan grew up in a Russian-Serbian area where he would get into fights at school, and he took on the sport of boxing. Yan is a very intelligent and good boxer. Yan is one of the most accurate boxers in the UFC. By the way, Yan's defense is one of the best things about him. His hands are always in place and where they're supposed to be, and his IQ and speed are very, very good, and don't forget about his accuracy, which really elevates him to another level. Petr Yan has very crisp boxing, he's defensively sound, and he's good on offense. He picks you apart and also makes sure he doesn't get hit. Yan could be winning, Yan could be losing, but in the boxing, he's always going to look better than you. So yeah, for hands, for boxing, I got Petr Yan. We're moving on to kickboxing. For kickboxing, I chose Israel Adesanya. For the runner-up, I chose Alex Pereira. Israel Adesanya moved to New Zealand from Lagos, Nigeria at the age of 12. Izzy was a really high-level kickboxer. He had the best technique and is one of the best technical kickboxers in history. Izzy was a 32-0 amateur kickboxer and a 75-5 professional kickboxer. He fought in Glory Kickboxing, where he at one point challenged for the middleweight belt. And Izzy has transferred that kickboxing style to the UFC, where he has displayed some of the best kickboxing performances, whether he showcases his skill or gets into a war. Izzy is a two-time UFC middleweight champion, where he knocked out a lot of his opponents. Izzy has one of the best low kicks, and he also probably has the best question mark kick we've seen in the UFC. And there's no doubt that Israel Adesanya is probably the best counterpuncher we've ever seen in the UFC. So that's why I chose Israel Adesanya for kickboxing. We're now on to Muay Thai. And for Muay Thai, there was a few fighters who you really could choose, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I'm going to go with Rafael Fiziev. The runner-up is Cyril Gane. Fiziev is from the country Azerbaijan. Rafael Fiziev is one of the best Muay Thai fighters we've seen in the UFC. As a pro Muay Thai fighter, Fiziev was 39-8 with a highly impressive 29 knockouts. Rafael Fiziev's body kicks are some of the best we've witnessed in the UFC and alone in the sport of Muay Thai. Rafael Fiziev is very fast and accurate with his attacks. He also has a very good clinch game and likes to knee, which is something that a lot of Muay Thai fighters do. So yeah, Rafael Fiziev, in my opinion, is the best Muay Thai fighter in the UFC right now. Next up we have is karate. And for karate, I chose Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. The runner-up is Robert Whittaker. Karate is one of the most disregarded and slept on martial arts when it comes to MMA. People have made it seem like karate doesn't work or isn't a good martial art for MMA. Although it's not a martial art I'd choose to master for MMA, it's still very effective and devastating. And I think the best karate fighter in the UFC would have to be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy was a 37-0 amateur kickboxer and a 57-0 professional kickboxer. Now the reason I brought up his kickboxing record, even though I chose him as the best karate fighter, is because the way he fought. Wonderboy has his hands down in a back and forth jumping motion, which is often used by karate fighters. Wonderboy's background is indeed karate, and he's a teacher at his family-owned karate school. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has brought the hands-down style to MMA and has beat a lot of guys and worked his way up to a title shot twice. Wonderboy, hands down, has the best lead leg, side kick, and lead leg in general. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has for sure silenced many people questioning karate and has displayed it in all of his fights. So I would definitely give karate to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Heading on to the next martial art, we got Taekwondo. And for Taekwondo, I chose Michael Venom Page. The runner-up would be Yair Rodriguez. Similar to karate, Taekwondo has a bad reputation in the sense of MMA. But there's a fighter that sticks out tremendously. MVP has a hands-down style that's jumping back and forth, and his technique is flawless. MVP has a really deadly blitz, and his timing is one of the best attributes he has in his arsenal. MVP was scouted to train and qualified to the Great Britain National Taekwondo Olympics team, but he denied it to pursue his MMA career. MVP is one of the best strikers we've seen in MMA, and even his 2 UFC fights alone. In every single fight he had in the UFC and in Bellator, he's always showed a great Taekwondo display. I was going to put Yair Rodriguez because he did have more fights, like a lot more fights than MVP in the UFC, but it's just no way I could put him over MVP. MVP is super skilled, and I think he's the best striker in the welterweight division and in a lot of divisions. So yeah, Taekwondo goes to Michael Venom Page. We're heading on to the ground game, and the first ground martial arts would be wrestling. For wrestling, I chose Belal Muhammad, and the runner-up would be Khamzat Chimaev. In order to be a complete, well-rounded MMA fighter, you have to have multiple martial arts down. And one of the most important martial arts in MMA is wrestling. Wrestling is a sport of grit, strength, IQ, power, and will. And someone who possesses all of those factors is Belal, remember the name Muhammad. Belal Muhammad has shown in each and every one of his MMA and UFC fights that he is a master at wrestling. Belal takes his opponents down with ease by using his pressure and pace, and also his timing and accurate takedowns. Belal has competed in the highest level of MMA, where he is now the UFC welterweight champion. Belal Muhammad's background is wrestling, as he's been doing it since his high school days. Belal has the work ethic of a wrestler, which is trying to break you. In my opinion, I think Belal Muhammad is the best wrestler in the UFC currently. The next topic we're going to be talking about is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I think we know the answer. It's Charles Oliveira. The runner-up would be Brian Ortega. Wrestling is a martial art that is great at trying to pin you down and smash you. But when we look at BJJ is a martial art that makes you work on the top and on the bottom to try to get a submission. And we have the most notorious finisher in UFC history, Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira. Oliveira has the most submissions in the UFC with 21. Charles Oliveira's BJJ is second to none. He has one of the best guards on the ground. He can submit you if he's on the top, or he can submit you if he's on the bottom. People who drop Oliveira on the feet, like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, when they let him get up, it's because they don't want to go on the ground. Charles Oliveira is a safe lock for the best BJJ practitioner in the UFC right now, and probably of all time. Now we're on to the next martial art, which is Judo. And for Judo, we have the first woman fighter in the video, which is Kayla Harrison. The runner-up would also be another woman fighter, Valentina Shevchenko. Now, Kayla Harrison has only had one fight in the UFC, but in that one fight, she dominated former women's bantamweight champion, Holly Holm. Kayla Harrison is a very strong and physical UFC fighter that implements Judo a lot by throwing you down. She likes to do hip tosses, and she trips you. The way Kayla Harrison takes her opponents down makes you think if you're watching an MMA match or a Judo match. Kayla Harrison is one of the most skilled judokas in MMA history, and her Judo is some of the best we've ever seen. Kayla Harrison's ferociousness makes her way more lethal when it comes to her ground game and taking you down, because she just doesn't care. She wants to get through you like a bull. So that's why I chose Kayla Harrison for Judo. Now we have Sambo. And for Sambo, I have the lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev. The runner-up would be Merab Dvalishvili. Like Judo, Sambo is a martial art that makes you take your opponent down in many different ways. Personally, I think Sambo's best representative in the UFC right now is none other than the lightweight champion right now, Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is the most dominant UFC fighter competing right now. A lot of Islam's success comes to his Sambo background. In 2016, Islam Makhachev won gold in the National World Combat Sambo Championship. Islam Makhachev has completely transferred that Sambo style into his well-roundedness, where he's able to take his opponents down in any type of way. it was safe to say Islam Makhachev is the best Sambo representative in the UFC right now. We're on to the last subject, which is MMA. Mixed martial arts just in general, we're going to be talking about the best fighter. And that's, of course, Islam Makhachev again. The runner-up for the best MMA fighter would be Umar Nurmagomedov. Now listen, when I say MMA, I'm talking about well-roundedness. Like, obviously, we're talking about, like, accomplishments, like, and, like, right now, Alex Pereira would probably be number 2. But I put Umar Nurmagomedov here because, you know, Umar, I just think he's more well-rounded than Pereira. We all know that. So yeah, I'm talking about well-roundedness. The best in general MMA fighter by their well-roundedness would also have to be Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is extremely well-rounded with great striking and has an unbelievable ground game. He gets many submissions, and Islam is a dangerous guy on the feet, as he showed in a few fights where he has knocked out his opponents. There's nobody as well-rounded as Islam Makhachev in the UFC right now. Me personally, I think Islam is the most well-rounded UFC fighter of all time. Islam beat the Dagestani stereotype of them just being wrestlers and undoubtedly is the best MMA fighter in the UFC right now. I appreciate you guys for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you guys think. Also, join the Discord server link in description, and I'll see y'all next time. Spaz out.